Our next speaker is from MySQL, Ryusuke Kajiyama. MySQL is our sponsor of Hong Kong Open Source Conference this year, and thank you for their support. The topic for today is your MySQL the genuine MySQL? Ryusuke Kajiyama is an open source solution specialist with 15 plus years of experience of system designs using MySQL and open source solutions. He originally joined MySQL AB and is currently managing MySQL Solution Engineering team of Asia Pacific region at Oracle. Welcome, Kajiyama-san.
Hi everyone, my name is Ryusuke Kajiyama from Oracle, Japan. I'm Solution Engineering Director of MySQL Global Business Unit in Asia Pacific and Japan. Today, I'd like to introduce my presentation titled as Is Your MySQL the Genuine MySQL? It is an important topic. You to secure your system by using not fake software. MySQL is open source, and there are a number of options you to install into your environment. But unfortunately, there are some cases you would face risk of using not trustworthy software. MySQL is built by the MySQL development team at the Oracle Corporation, and we distribute source code and binary of MySQL. And there are some cases some customers are using not formal binary from MySQL development team, or even sometimes you would see the software branded as MySQL or similar to it, but which is not really the MySQL itself. So the background of my presentation is starting from here. So why you should use the genuine software, or you should not use software which is not really official one or formal one or not real one. First of all, MySQL is open source and licensed under GPL, which means anyone can redistribute software for free. And with Goodwill, under Goodwill, there are websites so-called mirror site of MySQL download site, usually hosted by the universities or some telecommunication companies to allow people to download from closer physical location, as well as reducing the workload of the original download site. It was really important in earlier days of internet. You should have the download site closer to you, which brings you faster performance, or bandwidth of the original site was limited as well. And that idea still exists, and it's a still important idea. And most of the case, those sites are copying the original software, and which means you can use genuine software. However, even with under Goodwill, some people only host older version of the software to let other people to download. And those ones might be containing older bugs, which is already fixed in the newest version, but it might be in those older versions. Or even under Bottlewell, someone contaminates some bugs or some feature does not work. And again, it's even if it's under Goodwill, or the possibility of the containing bugs by modifying the source code of software, because there are a lot of interesting projects based on open source, and no exception for MySQL. Even for MySQL, there are a number of open source projects modifying MySQL source code itself. Some function pretty well, others might not. Well, that's the nature of open source. But if you go into production system of the mission critical applications, it's better to avoid those malfunction version. Of course, it works. It's great. You can utilize those features. However, using the offshore binary, it should have the less bugs than someone customized, or you can avoid bugs which already fixed in the newest version. The worst is backdoors, because malfunction bugs you might be able to see obviously, and you can know, oh wait, that one is not functioning, then okay, I should think about to use something else. But if it was intentionally created, well embedded backdoors, something you will never be able to know. So that's why the full offshore downloads from trustable organization should be a better option. And if you were using some forked versions, of course, it's a nature of open source. So fine, you are intentionally selecting the forked version. However, if you are not aware of incompatibility from original version, you might be locked in to those forked version. That's pretty against the philosophy of open source. It should be more open, and you can switch one place to other places. And if it was intentionally you are moving to something which is not compatible with the original software, it's fine again. But it's better to avoid those incompatibility and to go to keep an eye on the what's going on in the mainstream. The last one is another tricky problem. If you were using software which is not officially certified or reviewed, those forked version or someone created might violate third-party copyrights. It totally depends. But if you are not sure, you must be careful. If you're sure the source code added into the original software is not violating the third-party copyrights, you might use it. But if you're not sure, that's not really recommended to pick those options. So let's look into how to find a genuine MySQL. This is just a case of MySQL, which may be applicable to other software, may not. But a MySQL has a several ways our users to secure using real MySQL, not the fake ones. And there are 4 categories of topics here. Starting with download sites, where you to download the software. Number 2 is a package repositories. You may not download software by from websites or but just using the package managers. In that case, there's a couple of things you need to be careful. And the third one, even if you downloaded from the official sites, main repositories, or you may download from third-party repositories, then you can check that binary is actually the genuine MySQL officially certified or not. And last one is about cloud. But let's go for the number 1, download site. You can download MySQL from official download web of mysql.com. The page is so-called developer zone, and there is a download site, and you can see a screenshot on the right-hand side. You can download community edition of MySQL server, MySQL connectors, like JDBC driver or connection libraries for PHP, .NET, Node.js, and so on, as well as client programs, including MySQL Shell, which is a newest client program. And I do recommend you to use MySQL Shell, which is really useful for DevOps people. as well as nice GUI, so-called MySQL Workbench. You can download the newest minor versions of MySQL Community Server, including MySQL 8.0 or MySQL 5.7. But with some reason, if you prefer to download older versions, you can also download it named under download archives. And from this community e-download website, you can download installer or install package like LPM. Or simply you can unzip or extract third archives, which can be easier in some environment, or especially like testing environment, or with some reason you do not want to use package managers, you can download those ones. And of course, most importantly, you can download the source code of old MySQL server, connectors, client programs. So this is a place you can find the MySQL, or this is a starting point for everything. Another place you can download a MySQL from the original different team is GitHub. You can come to the official repository of MySQL team named github.com/MySQL, and you can download source code of MySQL Community Edition, MySQL Server, connectors, MySQL Shell, and some others. By the way, you can do the pull request to submit bug reports, or even you can submit the patches from GitHub. MySQL do have the bug database, which is a central bug repository. You can submit bug reports or submit the patches even, but you can do it from here, GitHub. And to submit the patches, by the way, you need to sign on the agreement named the Oracle Contributor Agreement, which is designed you to keep copyrights of source code for yourself, but Oracle also utilize utilize source code under the Oracle's MySQL team's control. And we can just jointly or separately exercise all those rights around your source code. And also, this also helps contributors to protect him herself, to secure part of the source code you submitted, you can utilize for other projects or other use cases as well. Oracle never take any copyrights from you. So, that's a legal agreement. It is not a big paper, and also there is a well-written FAQ in this website. So if you're interested, please review it and submit your patches as well. There's another way. So downloading the MySQL server itself or source code, you can do it at mysql.com or GitHub. There's one more thing. You can download a Docker container of MySQL, which includes MySQL server itself and MySQL shell and several client commands into the single Docker image. You can download it from Docker Hub, and it is prepared, prepackaged, and you can use it immediately. The one note I need to give you is this build. This build is especially designed for the Linux platform. There are several limitations if you want to use this one on a Windows environment, but on Linux platform, it's kind of really straightforward to use it. So I covered where you to download the genuine binary, and then there are several different options, binary or even source code from different places, MySQL.com, GitHub, or Docker Hub. There's one more option, or another way to install MySQL to your environment, and especially on Linux. Some people even prefer to use package manager. And there is an off-shell repository for MySQL. And to use this one, again, you need to come to dev.mysql.com/downloads. Yes, that's a download page of community edition. And you got to come here first because there's a information or like in a location information about repositories, depending on either YAM or APT or zipper /. So you download those ones and replace or adding default repository of each Linux distribution. So steps are here. First, download from mysql.com about official repo package, which comes with information where you can where your package manager downloads from, and it's a part of the mysql.com website. Then add that official repo package into your system. Usually you need to update package information, and then you can install MySQL server with package manager. So you need one step before installing MySQL server, but then now you can get the official repositories of MySQL and get the newest version. But if there's one question, most of the case, Linux distributions, comes with default repository configuration, and most of the case, including so-called MySQL. So without replacing or adding official repository, you can, it sounds like you can download and install MySQL. However, default repository of some Linux distribution, they host MySQL and based on the official source code. However, there are some cases versions are not up to date. So MySQL websites or official repositories, having the newest version. However, those Linux distributions repositories may be several minor versions older, which might contain critical bugs which is already fixed in the newest version. So that's why I recommend you to use MySQL's official repository, which you can enjoy the newest versions with all fixes, especially security fix. If it was delayed, some delays, that'll be troublesome. Another and a bigger reason I strongly recommend to use official repository of the package managers to install MySQL is the second point. Some distributions, some are still installing different products than MySQL, even if you specified to install MySQL server package. It happened a lot earlier, less nowadays, but still some distributions are doing this other thing. If you specify MySQL, or those package manager must install MySQL server, but they're downloading different software. And this is really troublesome. Or the software downloaded are not compatible with original MySQL even in many reasons. So that's why I'm strongly suggesting you to utilize official MySQL repository. So next step is verifying package integrity. Package integrity, what does it mean? Well, you can check the downloaded file is actually the same as the one before downloaded from download sites or repositories. And this is especially important if you are using mirror sites. Most of mirror sites are just copying the original file as it is in the same directory structures, and so you don't have to worry much about those are package integrity and so on. But some people might download source code and modify some. I don't know how they modify it with goodwill or not goodwill, but then compile it and let people download as if it is same as the original binary distributed on MySQL.com. So largely because of a security reason, you can check binaries are exactly same as the one hosted on MySQL.com. This is actually long URL on top of the page screen right now, but you can understand how to check the integrity or the utilizing those checking mechanisms. But MySQL.com always provides MD5 checksums as well as GNU PG, GNU Privacy eager, signature, and check whether binaries are exactly the same or not. So this GNU PG based signature is not new. It's already 5 to 7 years back, I believe, introduced, and you can check the where the binaries are same on the MySQL.com. For RPM, RPM binary usually have a verification system, so you can check through that one. And where you can find MD5 and also GNU PG signature, which is on the MySQL.com community download page. The MD5 is always shown right under the download button, and if you need to find a signature, you click signature, link to signature per binary. This is shown on a screenshot on the right hand side right now. So just in case you downloaded some binaries from mirror sites, but if you check MD5 or signature, if you find that it's not matching to the original, you must avoid using that binary. Okay, then next topic is MySQL in the cloud. Right now, there are several ways to use MySQL or in the cloud. Of course, you can download binaries of MySQL server and install it into infrastructure as a service. That's no far different from the on-premise way we've been doing for a long time. That works. Another option is if you created Docker-based environment in the cloud. All major cloud service providers are now having their Kubernetes-based environment and bringing their Docker image into it. That would work. But that one is also discussed earlier in this presentation. And the last one, which is the most tricky portion, can be database as a service, part of the platform as a service. There are a number of cloud vendors who are providing MySQL, so-called MySQL-based cloud database. However, I need to highlight one important thing here. There is only one cloud database or database as a service, which is based on the genuine MySQL, 100% developed, managed, and supported by MySQL engineering team, which is MySQL developers. MySQL database service is based on MySQL. Other service providers are providing the MySQL-like database as a service. Those are based on MySQL Community Edition, but there's some modifications into MySQL, or at least they do not disclose whether 100% compatible with MySQL Community Edition or not. And in most of the cases, we observe those MySQL databases are modified somewhat. However, MySQL database service from Oracle or on Oracle Cloud OCI is exactly same source code with MySQL Community Edition with additional commercial plugins, which means customers can switch easily from Community Edition to MySQL database service on OCI. Or if you prefer to back to Community Edition or on-premises environment, you don't have to worry about the compatibility. However, other cloud vendors, they are somewhat modifying MySQL, or at least no proof of the 100% compatibility with Community Edition. So there's some room of incompatibility. You may experience lock-in to that cloud vendor. So even if it became a cloud, MySQL development team respect the importance of the open source. So that's why the MySQL database service itself, the features are compatible with MySQL Community Edition, and we're providing the additional benefit so who uses MySQL database service, because database as a service from day one, you gotta pay. You need to pay to use the cloud services. So we are providing additional benefit for those people who are paying to MySQL. And one of the advantage of MySQL database service on OCI, which provides additional security features over Community Edition, which is pretty much equivalent with MySQL Enterprise Edition. But one more, and the largest benefit of using MySQL database service on OCI is a feature named HeatWave. HeatWave is a query accelerator of MySQL, which makes hundreds of times faster than MySQL itself to run analytics queries or complicated select statements. And that's a portion is OCI, cloud service only feature, which is not available or open source as of today. However, this will provide a huge benefit for the users of MySQL database service, especially you are using slave server to running reports, and you may see the far faster performance, or your application requires big analytics operations. MySQL database service with HeatWave will help improving performance. So if you're interested, either you're interested, please join our upcoming sessions by Ivan 2. He will talk about enhanced Grafana performance with MySQL database service with HeatWave. So today you learned importance of the using genuine MySQL and how to use it. You just verify your MySQL is based on genuine MySQL, not someone modified, and then the worst is those changes are hidden. But Oracle provides proven and clearly checked by software, and you can get the newest fixes whenever you need. Okay, thank you for joining my session today.